what planet would we say rules superstition?
Would be Jupiter, right?
I think Neptune. I could accept Jupiter as an argument, like I wouldn't give that an F. So, and I know Brian would make a strong case for Jupiter, so he might earn an A- or a B+. He'd have to work for it. And I'd be looking at him kind of sideways, but he'd get the grade. He'd get the grade. So
I'm open enough to hear the case for Neptune, though.
yes, perfect. All right, so this is the training. Okay, now we are really at a beginner's level because this is the training. It's about how to translate something we see or experience with our senses into astrological language. Right, and we could say superstition is something we can see with our senses, right? And then how to locate it from a planetary perspective, because that's where I start, planets. Right. And the way I teach the planets is the planets represent urges, deep urges in the unconscious, in the psyche, instincts, right? The whole point is that they come from somewhere and they arise within us. Right. And as they arise within us, we have to deal with them, right? And if we deal with them, we can utilize them for whatever they're for. But if we don't deal with them, they just find a way to come out anyway. All right. So, and if I'm saying that something is destructive or not constructive, typically we don't consciously do destructive things. It's not really part of human nature to consciously do destructive things. All right. It's usually some kind of perversion or a twist. All right. And unconsciousness is what we will say, right? If something is not being expressed consciously, it will be expressed unconsciously. So we can make an assumption that any negative behavior is the unconscious expression of something that is not negative. I'm focusing on the negative stuff, but the reality is if there's something unconscious, it can also be positive. And when someone is lucky, right, that's an expression of unconscious positive things. Okay, positive thinker. So it goes both ways, but we tend not to notice the positive ones, right? We tend to overly notice the negative ones. Right, but especially when it's coming out of other people, right? It's like we internalize that they're doing something to us. And typically they're not. It's just an unconscious expression of something that they haven't been taught how to express consciously. And it's not even their fault, And I think if we can have that kind of informed compassion, right? It's not even about compassion is a good thing, it'll allow us to be more skillful in knowing how to transform that discord, at least temporarily, when they're in our vicinity. But if we think they're doing something to us, then we're helpless victims of their ignorance and their depravity. All right, so okay, so going back to this idea of superstition, all right, we'll go through the urges, okay, and see, right? Could superstition be the unconscious expression of this urge? Right? And we'll see what we find. Okay. So, and it'll be an interesting conversation. As I'm starting to ask the question, I see that it's not black or white, but it'll give us a lot of nuance. Okay. So the sun is the urge for significance. All right. When I say the urge for significance, right? Take away the sun, but just the words, the urge for significance. When I say that, what does that invoke in you? What does that mean to you? The nature of the sun is that it is active, it's dynamic, it's radiating something outwards. And that's why I like to use the image of the sun, the circle with the dot in the middle, right? That dot in the middle is like our spark of divinity, right? And it desires to radiate in all directions and provide warmth and life and light to everything that it touches, okay? And if you can, I'm using poetic words, but if you can imagine someone who embodies those words, okay, the feedback they're going to get from the environment around them is that they matter, right? So that's why I like with the sun, I like the concept of earned applause, right? earned applause. Okay. And I have this image of a young child, on the swinging, saying, look, mom, I'm swinging really high. Okay. And this is an Aries kid. Okay. And the mom is like, oh, wow. Woo, right? Isn't the mom, right? Under knows that her kid is an Aries and kind of has in the back of her mind, right? Anytime she sees the kid showing courage, right? The back of her mind, make sure to acknowledge that. Okay. Ooh, right? Yeah. Okay. That kid feels comfortable and has a positive experience with doing things that are a little scary. Okay. That would scare most moms. Okay. And now we have a scary mom. Oh, no, get down. What do you know? Right? If you ever go that high again, you don't know how bad you scared your mama. Don't scare your mama. Ooh, okay. I feel bad for that child. Child's gonna have a rough time, okay, unless they can get away from mama. Okay, that's real. My daughter, Mars is her strongest planet. Okay, and her mom was one of those moms. Ooh, I saw it firsthand. You know, but part of what I'm saying about the planets is it's real. These instincts, these drives, these urges, they are real and they motivate behavior whether we want them to or not. All right, so the sun is the power urges. All right, so this one, the word, the term that was handed down, it's kind of old, but I still like it because it leads to discussion. So the moon is called the domestic urges. So when I say domestic urges, what comes to mind?
Well, outside of I feel like we always go to nurturing and the caring for someone like a mother, but domestic is also used in describing pets and animals, right? Like
What
just
makes
like
what makes an animal domestic? That you have to take care of them. Okay.
yeah. I was going to point out the difference in a domestic cat versus a wild cat, or a domestic dog versus a wild dog. Like the care and the love and the feeling that we have when we come home to our pet dog versus when there's a wild dog on the street, right? There's something about the domestic nature of this animal that it's family and
Well, when we say what I'm saying is when we say that an animal is domestic, it means that we have to take care of them. And I mean, it's I'm being kind of cold when the way I'm talking about it, because I'm talking about an urge. I'm not talking about the human fluff that we put on top of it, right? Is that there's something in us that has the need to take care of something. And even if, right, it's not, I don't want to have kids, right? We're going to attract thing that and we have a powerful moon, we are going to attract things to take care of. So think of all of the experiences related to taking care of something. Right? And before we are to an age where we have the ability to take care of anything, right? The moon manifests in how we are being taken care of. If you think of when a baby is born, right? They're completely at the mercy of any benevolent adult around them that has a lunar urge to see to that thing survives and has the ability to thrive. So, power urge, the domestic urge, any of these feel like imagination? I mean, superstition?
no.
Right?
Yeah.
People can have superstitions around how to be significant, and they can have superstitions about how to take care of something, but it doesn't come.
But those things won't create superstition. If we follow those things and we talk about those things, we're never going to land on superstition.
Mm-hmm.
Is what you're saying, right?
Not on their own. They can't create superstition on their own. Well said. I like that. So let's use this terminology a little bit. What kinds of things will the sun create? Here's an example. Okay, an example I like to use because I have Pluto in the first. All right, so you're around friends, right? Friends, a group of friends, and one of your friends just got a raise at work or just got something, that was great, maybe that you wanted, and you're ashamed of it afterwards, but what comes out of your mouth is you point out something not so great about the friend. And again, you don't do it consciously. It just comes out, again, the thought, right? Because that's how quick it happens, right? The sun, I need to shine. Somebody is shining brighter than me, and I don't feel really good about where I am in life. I don't know if I can handle that. So I have to do something to help me shine a little bit brighter. And then it just comes out of the mouth. And again, later when, sometimes right after, but usually later in the night when we're reflecting and we're like, I said that? Oh, I can't believe I was that person.
Well, okay, could it also be like, because I'm about to do it right now as a sun person, right? The urge when somebody says something to like jump
Yes,
and
yes,
piggyback it
yes,
and to like
yes,
one up it.
yes,
And
you got it. That's the
so like I'm
sun.
doing it right now, right? And I'm like
Yes.
stealing your shine and pointing.
Well, let's say that comes from the sun, but if someone actually has something to add, oh,
Right.
earned
And that's
applause,
where
right? That's
negative.
why it's earned applause, right? If you've done the work and you actually have something to add, please, right? But if you haven't, but you need to feel good, right? Shut the fuck up, right? I mean, if you want people to like you, right? Because right, sometimes not saying something, right? Because if you need to shine and you're waiting for that opportunity, you're not taking it in, right? You're not getting the information that you need to. So when the moment does come for you to shine, right, you're ready to shine. All right. So great example. Great example. You know. But also I think those moments where there's a difficult choice to make, and we imagine ourselves making one choice and we makes us feel small. It might even feel like logically the right choice, but we imagine ourselves making that choice and we feel small. And it might be the wrong choice, but we imagine a choice and it makes us feel brighter, right? Like we stuck to our guns, It's a form of courage. This is something that is truly important to me, right? And if I don't do this, I'm not going to feel good about myself. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to take a stand, right? That's the sun thing too, right? That kind of behavior. That's why when we talk about the sun or Leo, we talk about nobility or dignity. In a lot of the movies where you see kings, it's about the honor. This is what I believe in, right? And that's I stand for something. People know where I stand. That's also part of the sun. So what kind of things come from the moon?
Well, pets, right? Pets would come from the moon, the creation of a pet, right? Like, oh, I need something to take care of, and I don't have
100%.
baby humans, so let me just take care of this little duck over here.
100%. Right.
Children?
The duck will not talk back.
Babies?
The duck will not tell me how bad of a parent I am. So I take the duck. That's the thing about pets, right? They don't complain. You could be the worst pet owner, right? They will not complain. So, babies, yeah, that's something to take care of. That's a slippery one, but yeah, definitely that makes sense. So here's what I feel like is a moon question. Okay, someone says, "Why do you care?" Again, this is my version of it. Okay, so I have a Cancer moon, right? My strongest planet, and I'll be up here working, and I'll hear Soul downstairs like yelling, like yelling. Okay, and my wife Linnea, she has this is part of it, right? She has their moon in Capricorn, so she hears him yelling too, right? But when she hears him, it's like a low hum, when I hear him, it's like a loud screech, you know? So why do I care, right? Because that screech doesn't sound good, right? So Moon, Cancer, why do I care? Because I can feel it too. It's like, family, I can't feel better until you feel better, so feel better. Right? How can I help you feel better so I can feel better? I know it's kind of cold in saying that, but it's like, can you sense the reality in that? This is why I call them instincts or urges. You know, right? Because I can feel it, I am greatly motivated to do something about it. I think that's why Cancer is tenacity, or the crabs, right? Because if a baby's sick and you can't sleep, you're motivated to keep trying to figure out how to get this baby to feel better. So why? You can go to sleep. So I think Moon creates those kinds of situations. Those kinds of situations. Yeah. All right. So Mercury, the messenger of the gods. So Mercury is the intellectual urge. And I think of intellectual, I get to intel and I stop. Yeah. Intel, information coming, information going. This is Mercury. All right. So what kind of things come from Mercury?
A new idea.
News, good news, bad news. Right. Mercury. The Mercury rules correspondence, right? But yeah, well, I wouldn't say new ideas as much as new perspectives. You know, I don't think Mercury can come up with new ideas. It can only find different connections. I think the new ideas come from Uranus, but Mercury can have a different perspective and see things from a different perspective. So it could definitely offer new perspectives, right?
So
Because
maybe questions.
Yeah, learning, right? Oh, questions come from Mercury. That's wonderful. 100%.
Right, this new perspective shows up, and so now because there's this new perspective, I have new questions.
I see things differently, and there's whole blind spots that I need to ask questions to be able to fill those blind spots. 100%. Yes, that's healthy Mercury. Mercury person will have questions. Questions. Right? Talk to a Mercury person or a Gemini, like, I never thought about it that way. Oh, it's interesting. I learned something today. So yeah, Mercury is the planet of learning, right? But part of learning is the ability to, right? When I say learning, truly learning something means you have the ability to pass that information on. Messenger, right? The messenger has to hear the message clearly and hold it long enough to be able to give it to the other person. All right. So what are some other things that come from Mercury?
Well, as you were talking about, I was thinking about translators. Right, like when I'm in a class with the natives, they'll talk for like 5 minutes, and the translator has to keep all of it and then translate. And it's like it's a huge demonstration of Mercury.
100%. So can someone with a weak Mercury be a good translator?
With a lot of effort.
There you go. There you go. Great answer. Wonderful answer. Not without a shit ton of effort. Yes, yes, yes. Or at least to be a good one, okay? Right? Because again, Mercury's not strong and can't handle all that information exchange, okay? So things that come from Mercury, questions. I like that. Right? Because Mercury kids, they notice things, right? And the kids that notice things, right, they don't shut up. What's that? What's that? What's that? What's that? Right? But Sol's he's a Gemini. He's got 3 planets in Gemini.
He's the king of what's that?
Oh my God. Notices everything. Like if I eat something and I'm eating, he's like, what did you just eat? He's got Pluto on the first, and sometimes he says things to me, and I'm not trying to, but I can tell the look that my face makes because of his response. He'll say, I didn't do anything. didn't do anything. I didn't do anything. And I'm like, how do you already know that we think you did something? I mean, he's a Pisces moon too, so it's kind of got like this psychic ability, like if I get up, he always knows where I'm going, right? I don't know if it's the way I get up, but he knows if I'm going outside, he knows if I'm going upstairs. It's like,
Yeah.
did you go to smoke a che? So it's like the Mercury mind, right? Wants to eat information. All right. Give me information. And the more new information, the better it tastes. Okay. So news, right? Where it comes from Mercury. Also noticing and analysis. Ooh, okay. That comes from Mercury too. Connecting the dots and noticing when the dots don't connect. That's Mercury. That's the Virgo side of Mercury. All right, now Venus, okay? Venus is called the social urges, okay? I call Venus the affective urges, A-F-F-E, affective. The word affect, we know the word from the affection. So typically when we think about affect or affection, we think of, that's nice and that's good. But the word affect, it actually means something more akin to something that moves us emotionally. And that could be in any direction, but something that moves us, right? We have affect, right? It affects us, okay? And because Venus does go both ways. I think the ideal, right, is it affects us, it affects us in a good way. It makes us happy, right? But also Venus is the planet of disgust. And I think it's useful to know when something doesn't taste good or something doesn't feel good. That's Venus. And another word I like to use for Venus is harmony. Right? Because even if we say this is too sweet, this isn't sweet enough. Okay, this is a little better. Right? Kind of you get the scales on. Perfect. Now this is delicious. Right? Has the right amount of this and the right amount of this and the right amount of this, and it's so yummy. Okay, so Venus harmony. Okay, harmony. And So, and I think if someone has a strong Venus, right, and they value harmony, it tends to feel good to be around them in that state, okay? And if someone is harmonious, it's easy to be around them, right? We tend to want to be around them more. If someone is not, we tend not to be around them, okay? Want to be around them. And one of the things about survival is in our evolution, we recognize that if we bond together, right, our chances of survival go up. But in order to bond together, there has to be at least some level of I like you enough to deal with your shit. Okay, so I think this is why Venus is called the social urges. Okay, but I think at the core of it, right, it's our ability to recognize, and because we can recognize it, we have the ability to create harmony. So what kind of things come from Venus?
Music.
So when we say music, actually music comes from the moon, but harmony comes from Venus. And so when harmony is applied to music, and that's typically the way we think of it, we get Venus. So yeah. And I think, one way to think of music comes from the moon. I think of the drumbeat of the heart, the fetus. Harmony, because when we think of music, right? So when I say
thinking of a
music,
collection of things that sound great together.
Exactly. Yeah. But when we get the root of music, I think of, again, the heartbeat, the fetus is hearing the heartbeat. Right?
Yeah.
But so I think the moon music is just the beat, the sounds we hear, right? The natural sounds we hear. But when those, right, the birds singing, right, there's harmony there. That's the Venus side. And if I was thinking of singing using the voice, there's the Taurus and the harmony in the throat, but I would tend to think of Mercury there, right? Because there's words coming out, right? There's typically some kind of information carrying on the wavelength. So I might think of Mercury and Venus together. right? Someone who has the ability to create harmony with their words or with their voice. Anything pleasing, which would include that, right? In the word pleasant or pleasing, it comes from Venus. If something is pleasing to us, that's Venus. Something is displeasing or something is tasteful to us, Venus. Something is distasteful, Venus. All right, so this my chart's a good example. So in conventional astrology, something called essential dignity, Venus is considered in detriment when in the sign of Aries. And not only is this Venus in the sign of Aries, but it is right next to the planet Mars. All right. So what might we say are the things that I, an example of something I might find tasteful and an example of something I might find distasteful?
Tasteful, right? We've talked about it before, but martial arts, right? Like the skill involved in battle, and then distasteful, like a poor expression of Aries, so cowardice.
All right, so 85%. I'd say 85, maybe even I get up to 90. Okay, I'm grading hard today. And I grade you harder. So the small
I'll take that as a
distinction.
victory.
Yeah, it is. You should. So it's not martial arts, but you're super close, right? If I'm watching a martial arts and it's shitty martial arts, right, it'll hurt my stomach and I'll have to walk out, right? If they are really skilled, right, at the attack and it's graceful and beautiful and it's like a dance, but they're hurting each other, oh man, right? Wow, right? Even the strategy of attack, the beauty, the gracefulness of it, right? And if you think of the grace, this is why it's considered a detriment, the grace of a soldier in battle, right? It's people that are squeamish, right? They can't get past the fact that there's a battle to get to the ability to appreciate it. Right? You can imagine someone with this chart who was taught they're not supposed to fight, right? They would miss out on it's weird to say it. This is the detriment. They would miss out on so much beauty in the world. Those I don't watch those Arnold Schwarzenegger war movies. There's too much violence. Oh, you're missing out on so much beauty in the world. Here's an example. My wife and I were such an 8th house example. Okay, and even the trine to Saturn, ruler of my 5th. Okay, we're having a conversation about my son Blaze. Okay, we're having a conversation about Blaze, and Lene and Blaze, they had a rough time with each other. Okay, they're much better now, but man, it's rough. It's rough being in the middle of that. Okay, and so but like most moms, right? Lene's Capricorn moon, she wants to do a good job, right? She wants to be a good stepmom. She wants to be the cool stepmom. But if you give Blaze an inch, the motherfucker's taking the whole country, right? So she's trying to learn to figure it out, right? And you make mistakes with Aries energy, right? You're going to get cut, and it's going to leave a mark that sometimes takes a little bit of time to heal. Okay, and so they're going back and forth, and every time I bring it up, right? Every time I say Blaze's name, right, it turns into an argument. It's like, to me, that's no good, right? This is no good. No good, right? I was miserable whenever it would move into that place. Distasteful, And when we were driving to one of Steve's classes, I think, we were driving up north, and we were having a conversation, and Blaze came up, right? And I was just one of those moods, probably having a Mars transit, where I just said something. I was like, why don't you just own and I said it nicely, so why don't you just own your part of it, right? And Linnea said, fuck off, right? And I think for her, she was like, I'm not supposed to say that to my husband, But for me, I was like, yes. I was like, right? Because we're getting to something, right? It's like, to me, it's the joy of the battle, right? Because in my football career, I've known if you just fight valiantly, it's fine and everything will be fine. But 20 plus years of that kind of training, right? Again, in a relationship, in the eighth house is a relationship house, and Venus is there. That's a lot to ask of the partner. Okay. Pluto in the first, right? So probably now it's gone down to once a year. It used to be once every 3 months. Right. I say, no, Lene, if you just want to go, I completely, totally understand. I get it. No, I am not for everyone. Okay. Right. And even the courage for her to say, I'm still in it. Ah, yes. That's why I love it so much. So this is, there's a term in my culture, we call it a ride or die, a ride or die. Okay. And what we know, right, that the moon represents the women in a man's life. Okay. This Mars Venus square is squaring my moon. Right. And my mom, right, in Aries, her sun right here, 21 degrees Aries. Okay. Okay. Venus. Okay. What kind of things come from Venus? Venereal disease. Yes, you got it. Oh, so good. But I think the image of venereal disease, right, is about promiscuity, and of course there's some of that. But from a Venusian perspective, okay, if I say no, he won't like me anymore. If you think like taboo, but how many women have gotten pregnant or an STD, right, because of that thought form? All right, that's okay. Again, I'm sorry, I'm pointing out the dark things that come from the planets because I think people lean too much in the right. There's wonderful things, right? Love, the warm and fuzzies. Oh, wow. Right? Ice cream. Ah, yeah. A good haircut. Ah, yes, a good hairdo. Yes, yes. Venus, Venus, Venus.
Venus could manifest as like overeating, right? In a different way than Jupiter would. Right? If we're eating to make ourselves feel better, or would that be the moon?
Yes,
Or
feeling better is the moon, right? But moon and Venus connected, someone right there they are going to emotionally eat. Right. There. It's gonna happen, I promise. Yeah. So but Venus is about true Venus, right? You eat something, and you savor the taste. Okay, true Venus, and when you eat it, after like that fourth bite, it doesn't taste so good anymore. Real Venus doesn't want it anymore. It doesn't taste as good anymore. Okay. But so Venus is the sweet taste, right? I won't say overeat. Venus might like rich foods, sweets, but even rich foods is more Jupiter, fats. So Jupiter is like, Jupiter's I'll walk I'll walk 2 miles a day. It'll be fine.
well, my friend Chris, whose strongest planet is Jupiter, he used to talk about a shirt that he wanted to get printed that just had the words extra shrimp on
Yes.
it. Because
Yes.
extra shrimp is a lifestyle.
Right. Or like Jupiter would be, right? It's extra. Well, how can I say no? Right? I wouldn't offend him by saying no. If it's here, it must be for me. Yes. So Jupiter is more of excess, but with Venus, it's easy to go to excess to things that feel good, I don't I got Venus Mars, okay? Sometimes in the morning, if I'm snuggling Linnea, I don't want to get out of bed. Right? This is why Venus has a reputation for being lazy, and it's not that it's lazy, right? If something feels good, I don't want us to stop. Now we think of Venus as the ruler of Taurus, right? This job, that paycheck is there every 2 weeks. It feels good. I don't want to stop. So imagination come from Venus?
Not so much. A little bit.
You can see, yeah, there's a little bit. You can see how you can see how, right? Superstition and Venus that they're closer than the closest than the other planets, right? But I'm not sure it really comes from there, right? It doesn't. we might use superstition to get our Venus needs met, but doesn't feel like it actually comes from them. Next is Mars, the aggressive urges. Right, to get to this quick, throughout all evolution, there's been things trying to eat us, and we've needed to eat things. Okay, in order to eat something, you got to catch it and you got to eat it. You got to bite into it. Right, in order to stay alive, you have to fend off the things that are trying to bite and eat you. Right, so you better be able to meet those challenges when they come. If you can't, no survival. Right, so the part of us that's built to meet the challenges, you can think of it as the fight or flight response. Okay, that's Mars. We might call it the rawest form of the survival instinct, the way we tend to think about the survival instinct.
Right.
Yeah. But it's really, in order to survive, we have to overcome obstacles and challenges. So it's not just eating, but eating is one of the major obstacles that we have to overcome. All right. So what kinds of things come from Mars?
Strife.
You got to be
Sex.
way more specific than that.
Sex.
It's true. Sex comes from Venus. Penetration comes from Mars. Right? So, they're kind of sometimes the same. Sometimes they're not. But Mars is the penetration and the ejaculation, right? That you need blood to get to the penis in order for it to work effectively and to penetrate. That's Mars. And then you need some propulsion power to get the sperm all the way to the ovum. That's Mars. So, right, because in a biological sense, right, procreation is an emergency, because if we don't do it, we can't pass on our genes. So, right, the woman is ready and the man can't get it up, right? That's the failure to meet an emergency. That's a Mars problem. I love you. I love the way you feel. Why can't you get it up? Okay. It's a Mars problem. Okay. So, yeah, they're both the planets of sex, but Mars is the penetration and Venus is the lube. So I asked Steve about this in class. It was an aspects class. And I raised my hand and I asked him about this conjunction. Here's some, I'm paraphrasing, but pretty closely. He said, Mars is the erect penis and Venus is the moist vagina, and they're right next to each other. I've been there before. All right, so Mars. What other things come from Mars? Accidents, accidents. Right, there's my craniosacral mentor. He tells a story of, when they look at the bones of the Neanderthals, is that the Neanderthals have a lot of the same injuries as people in the rodeo, and that in hunting for game, broken bones, war, sports, okay, these kinds of injuries come from Mars. But also heroism, you hear someone and you hear the story, why the hell would they do that, right? Mars. Most people end up in prison, okay? Mars got them, impulse control. The animal nature, okay, the monster came out. Does superstition come from Mars?
No.
No, it doesn't feel like it. All right. Okay, we gotta go quick now. Jupiter is the religious urges, right? To get to the heart of Jupiter, the need to believe in something, right? And we think of how important this is. I think children are not born believing in God, okay? But they are born believing in something, okay? The parents, exactly, okay? And it's funny, and at least in my Christian religion, we have earthly parents and we have heavenly parents, okay? And I think once we get to a certain point where our abstract mind starts to realize our earthly parents ain't godly, they're not gods, right? That's the time where it's trying to leave those parents and more look towards our earthly parents, because we have the ability to be able to do so. I think that's a powerful initiation that I think because we've lost religion, we've kind of lost. So there's a tendency, at least in America, for people to see their earthly parents as heavenly parents. Oh, good luck with that. All right, so Jupiter, the need to believe in something. Need to believe in something. The need to believe in something. You know, I'm going to keep it there and say, okay, based off the need to believe in something, right? What things come from Jupiter? Religion. Yeah. This is where you see, and superstition.
This is where I would say superstition, but I'll argue against myself and take your side and join Team Neptune and say that Jupiter is the planet that would believe in superstition.
Yes.
Not necessarily create it. Right?
That is beautiful.
Hear the superstition and go, oh yeah, I'll buy that ticket.
A+.
Hey.
A+. That is additive. That is wonderful. That is a great example. Yes. Okay, so the nuance, beautiful. Okay, what things come from Jupiter? The need to believe. Yes. Religion, dogma, superstition, bigots, know-it-alls, faith, college, higher education, journeys overseas. Why would someone get on a boat and just go into the horizon? Okay, because I know there must be something out there, and I gotta see for myself. Seeing is believing. All right, Saturn, the safety urges. Ooh, this one's fun. It's safety, right? Safety. Because it starts, we call it safety, but we can also call it efficiency.
Yeah.
Or usefulness.
Efficacy,
that's the word I'm looking for. Yes. Right? And so it's kind of a bridge to get from safety to efficacy, but hopefully we can build that in so it's obvious to us. Right? Is that if I'm wasting a lot of time in food, I might not survive the winter. Right? So the need to hoard or save or hide or protect, secrecy, all of those come from Saturn because they all come from the urge to be safe. Right? I think of this in relationships. This is a tricky one, especially with women on the call, right? Is that a guy's in a relationship and the experiences he had growing up is when he tells women the truth, it's not safe. Okay? Right? And the woman's like, why are you lying to me? And right, guy doesn't know. Doesn't feel safe to tell you the truth. Okay. But that's what's really going on. And if you imagine the guy saying that, right, then you have something to work with. But any thought, action, feeling, behavior that has to do with being safe, all of it comes from Saturn. A lot of stuff comes from Saturn. Okay. Poverty, right? Whether that's physical poverty or emotional poverty, right? This feeling of I lack something. Saturn, right? Because right, the only reason we care if we lack something is that we think we need it. We need it, right? So that safety urge. I don't have what I need, so I don't feel safe. Uranus, okay? Uranus is the individualistic urge. It's the need to be different, original, unique. It's funny if you think of this image of, your what are those animals that jump off the cliff? Are they lemurs?
They're unfairly maligned lemmings, so it's actually not a true statement. But
yes, okay. But the idea, right? The concept, right? We can use it as a symbol or as an image, okay? Yeah. Right? It's because we've all been in situations where we've been going along with the group, and we had this sense that maybe I shouldn't be going along with the group. But then we had the sense of, I don't want to be an outsider, so we decided to go along with the group, okay? Uranus was that voice saying, I don't know about this, right? And people that have Uranus strong in their chart, okay? Anytime an adult says something, that voice comes up, I don't know about this, right? Uranus is strong, that voice is strong, okay? That voice is strong. This is cool. Even based on that image of Uranus, what kinds of things come from Uranus?
Doubt is the word that's coming to my head. Like the feeling of doubt, but just from the I don't know, like, it's just like questioning it. So that to me feels like an expression of doubt.
Yeah, maybe I didn't express it well. You're not far off, but I wouldn't say doubt. I might say skepticism towards what is conventional. I might say skepticism, but I'd also have to say specifically towards what is conventional. Skepticism towards what. So yeah,
Skepticism of convention.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
And then, but even that's abstract. So we can think of all of the things that have arisen out of that kind of skepticism.
Oh, inventions.
Right? Yes, 100%. Okay. Why are people still doing it this way? I feel like there's a better way to do this. Okay. And if someone has some mechanical skill and they have a strong Uranus that they feel like there's a better way to do this, they empower themselves to create a better way to do it. But if someone just has Uranus, but they don't have the technical or manual dexterity to do anything about it, then it's just an idea. And maybe they manifest as great orators, right? People that can get people, riled up because their speech get people thinking about things that they hadn't thought of. Okay. All right. So could we see imagination coming from the individualistic urge?
There's a little tinge of it, but it's not all the way there. Like just the right? Because if I'm skeptic, if I'm a skeptic of the conventions, then I must have some imagination of what's different.
Yeah, it's funny, but what we're tapping into is the fact that when we hit Uranus, we've gone to the outer planets. So we've crossed the barrier to where imagination lives, but we're not quite there yet. It's like you're trying to talk to someone who hasn't had that aha moment. They don't have the ability to hear what you're saying. But someone who's had that aha moment, they might not understand, but they're not stuck in the lower thinking, right? They've gone through, and so they can at least start to make sense about what you're saying. Okay. So you could think of, in order to get to true Neptune, you first have to go through Uranus. You have to have your mind blown first. That's me, Uranus thing. But people with strong Uranus, they are born with their minds blown. Okay, I definitely was born with my mind blown. Right? Some people say I always got in trouble because I broke the rules. I never could understand or perceive what the rules were. Right? It's like they didn't make sense to me, so they didn't register as rules. They're just words. They're just ideas. Okay. So, oh man. All right. So Uranus. So it is like that. It's the first step. Again, the mind, we have to blow our minds before we can reach out and go beyond. Okay. Neptune is the utopian urges. Okay. Right. It's the part of us that desires things to be better than they currently are. Right, that's why, like, if I'm in a situation, in order to imagine things being better than they are, I have to leave, right, the situation and go to a place where things that I would like to happen can actually happen. All right, again, people with strong Neptune, you'll tend to hear them say, I wish, only if, I wish, only if, I wish. Oh man, only if. Could you imagine one day? Right. So, and I think with Neptune, it's our ability to be enchanted, right? Because if you're talking to a friend and you're talking about the things that you hope and wish, right? They might say, "Are you high? What are you talking about?" Yeah. Or like falling in love, right? You start thinking about the future together and how wonderful it's going to be, and that enchantment kind of feel. And I think in our cold, hard, materialistic world we live in right now, it's like Neptune doesn't get much play, right? If you are doing Neptune, right, people don't take you seriously, right? And so I think this is my theory, because of that, right, people come to astrology to escape things making sense. So I find when I try to introduce a logical type of astrology, people are like mad. Oh my God. People look to an astrology for an escape. Like I've been to these conferences and these classes, and when I hear people talk about astrology stuff, they are just making stuff up, right? They get like 13% of something that they read in a book, and then they just make up the rest. I'm talking about people that are actually in the class, and I'm not making fun of them. I'm really pointing out that in our culture, we need some kind of way to express Neptune. And I think astrology checks that box because, especially if you start to get into this kind of astrology, you got to do a little bit of math, right? You got to learn the rules, right? And so it checks that box of, I'm learning the rules, right? But there still needs to be that sense of enchantment. And what I argue is the enchantment is actually useful. Constructive enchantment is in the logic, right? The ability to notice and recognize synchronicities. Oh, to me, that's my favorite way to check the Neptune box. Every time we notice a synchronicity, right? That sense of mystery and awe and what's possible, man, it gets fed. And I think when we're superstitious, and it's a natural expression of the need to feel like live in this magical thinking, to live in a world where, right? And I think where it kind of will collude with Jupiter, right? Is I have this, the fantasy of knowing everything. And to me, the difficulty with the fantasy of knowing everything is it keeps you from having the reality or working towards the reality of knowing everything. And so we take the shortcut of the superstition instead of recognizing that there is a way to have some understanding of what is going on. But I think with the materialistic science, there's this void of the things that they can't explain, right? And we don't talk about it. So we don't have a way to apply the scientific method, because it's a sound, beautiful method to the things we don't understand. And I find applying, experimentation and the general principles of the scientific method to astrology, we all are capable of doing it. I mean, most of us had to sit through biology lab, we had to sit through science. And so somewhere in our unconscious, right, we have a general sense of how to observe nature and take notes, And oh wow, the chart is such a great tool because we have so many tools to utilize to observe nature.
Well, the superstition conversation, just thinking about it and your connection of Neptune to athletes, right? Superstition is so prevalent in sports, right? Especially baseball, right? Where I remember even as a kid, like being on the baseball team, like superstitions are all around, right? Tournament, we won the game. You can't change your socks. You can't change you can't change what you're wearing. Or a guy is on a slump and he's got a beard, and so I haven't gotten a hit in a week, and he shaves the beard because it's do something to change, because there's some belief in if I do
magic, right? Magic. We say magic. We would call it magic. But because magic has been, you burned at the stake for practicing it, right? We have some ambivalence about it, and so we do the fake magic or the magic light. The real magic that you're talking about with the chart, we have the ability to move towards that kind of magic. But if we choose superstition, we lose that ability because we replace, right, perception, observation with superstition.
We change from a logical scientific system of magic to just I think this will work.
A magical type of magic, yeah. And mine's not one or the other, but right, to blend the two, integrate the two. That's why I love astrology, because it's like every day I get to practice integrating the two, the synchronicities and the noticing the connection. Now, I apologize for going way over, but I wanted to get to Neptune.
We'll leave Pluto.
Yeah. Well, we got the point. We got to Neptune. So the homework, homework is recognize when superstition shows up for you. Don't judge it, just notice it. And then, because once you start to notice it, right, the gift is you start to be able to replace it with questions question.